There's a simple experiment in physics almost no one talks about after high school. It's called the double slit experiment. At first, it sounds harmless. A few particles, a few slits, some dots on a wall. But the closer you look, the more unsettling it gets. Particles seem to know when they're being watched. Reality seems to change, just because something could have known what happened. And if that's true, and according to physics it is, what even is reality without someone there to witness it? When I heard real physicists hinting that consciousness itself might be woven into the fabric of physics, something clicked. What if the final missing link in the theory of everything isn't hidden in space, or the universe, or time, or particles, but within us? If that idea sounds impossible or ridiculous, well, stay with me, because the deeper we look, the stranger and maybe more beautiful the universe becomes. Welcome back to Thinking and Being. If you like what you see today, please be sure to like and subscribe, as this will keep this kind of content coming your way. And as I've said before, my pledge to you is to make each successive video 1% better in different ways so that you have a better experience as the viewer. So what's new in the studio? Well, since the studio is sort of an echo chamber with its hard walls and floors and windows, I've been experiencing with the foam panels, and I bought even more to cut down on the echoing. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if I have to do all the videos just like this. I don't know. But yeah, just stay tuned and just know that just outside of the camera line of sight that there's a lot of foam panels all around. And we'll see if this works. Who knows? Today, I want to talk about the famous double slit experiment, its crazy implications, and what it has to do with things other than physics. I'm actually really excited about this episode. I've been promising it for a while. I keep saying I'm going to talk about physics. Well, here's the episode, as well as others. But I'm excited that this is the first video where we're going to talk about some crazy stuff rather than some more safe topics. And it's the first video in a 4 or 5 video series of related topics. And these related topics will very much matter to you. So why this particular topic? I've always found physics fascinating, especially when it brushes up against the edges of mystery. But what really pulled me in was the strange recurring whisper from some of the smartest people alive or who have ever lived that at the lowest levels of reality, it seems like consciousness might actually matter. No pun intended. Not in a mystical or abstract way, but in a measurable, observable way. When I first heard that, I thought, well, that might be the thing, the missing piece, the part we've been avoiding. And if it's true, then it changes how we understand the universe and how we understand ourselves. So the first main idea I want to talk about is setting up the double slit experiment and walking you through step by step how they evolved that experiment and why it matters. So the experiment is basically, let's shoot stuff at a screen through slits. So imagine you're firing tiny things like marbles at a wall with a vertical slit in it. What lands on the screen behind the wall with the slit is just forms a straight line. Now add a second slit. You'd expect 2 lines or 2 clumps, right? Seems simple. It's kind of exactly what you'd expect. Marbles can't go through 2 places at once. But this is where physics gets interesting. You see, unlike marbles, things like light and electrons don't really play fair. If you shrink down to the quantum world where we fire light or photons or electrons instead of marbles, you fire them through one slit, you get 1 clump behind the slit. Kind of like a tight distribution of clumping like before. But when we fire light or even single electrons through 2 slits, they don't form 2 lines or 2 clumps. They make a stripe pattern, like ripples. And this is what is called an interference pattern. And it's how waves on the surface of water behave. You've seen this before. When fired one at a time, they still form a wave pattern. Somehow they act like waves and interfere with themselves. So wait, how does something act like a wave when it's just a tiny particle at a time? Well, let's go back and recap. We're firing particles like photons or tiny packets of light, electrons, building blocks of atoms, or even whole atoms and molecules in some experiments. At the quantum level, though, all of these things show wave-particle duality. So they behave like particles or tiny dots when measured one way, and they behave like waves or ripples that spread out and interfere when measured another way. But there's an easy way to remember. When you're looking at the screen at the end of the experiment, particles end up in clumping patterns on the screen, like marbles hitting a wall, whereas waves make an interference pattern on the screen, like ripples crossing on a pond. It's not either or, they are both, depending on how you ask the question. So next, let's try to watch what's happening. So scientists got curious. Which slit is the particle actually going through in the double slit experiment? So they placed tiny detectors at the slits to find out. And guess what happened? The interference pattern vanished. The wave pattern was gone on the screen. Instead, just two clumps, like marbles again. Just trying to look at it made the wave disappear. So you're telling me the particle knew? Somehow, yes, the particle knew it was being watched. When nobody looked, it behaved like a wave. But when we measured it, it behaved or acted like a particle.
If you can explain this using common sense and logic, do let me know, because there's a Nobel Prize for you.
It's not just about seeing, it's about whether the information could be known. Interesting for sure, but that's not physics. That's consciousness. Now let's really break your brain. Let's talk about the successor to this experiment called the delayed choice experiment. Same setup, but what if we decide to measure things only after they've already gone through the slits, not at the slits? That's called the delayed choice experiment. Amazingly, the result on the screen still changes. It's like the particle waits to see if it'll be measured before deciding what it was at the quantum level. The future affects the past.
What Wheeler's experiment showed is that even though the electrons started as waves but behaved like particles after being observed, at the moment the decision to observe them was made, the electrons recorded themselves as having passed through the slits as particles. The electrons changed their state by going back in time.
So what does this all mean? Keep in mind now, these are some of the smartest people using peer-reviewed methods to answer the biggest questions ever asked. And this is where we are. At the quantum level, particles aren't really particles or waves. They're possibilities. The act of observation decides the outcome.
Oh, there's so much I don't know about astrophysics. I wish I read that book by that wheelchair guy.
And it's not about human eyes, it's about whether the information exists. Reality isn't fixed until it's observed. What else depends on observation? Consciousness? The universe itself? So as you probably know, one of the things I do in my videos is promote other people's products. And of course, it's an unpaid promotion. I'm not getting paid, but I figure it's good karma. It might be something you really like, and it's great practice for when this channel gets monetized, which of course is going to happen. But the product that I want to promote today is the book by Stephen Hawking called The Universe in a Nutshell. And I really like this book because, number one, it turns mind-bending concepts into beautiful visuals and stories. Hawking explains black holes, relativity, quantum mechanics, and the shape of time without overwhelming you. And the illustrations, my favorite part, make complex ideas click. Second, it respects beginners without dumbing things down. You're challenged, but you're also guided. He builds a ladder of understanding, one small idea at a time, without assuming that you're already a physicist. And then third, the book invites you to wonder, not just memorize. Hawking's real genius isn't in explaining the facts, it's making you feel the strangeness and beauty of the universe, kind of the same spirit of this video. So I'll leave a link to this book in the description below so you can check it out. I think you'll really like it. Back to the video. Second main idea I want to talk about is the crazy implications of the double slit experiment and its follow-on, the delayed choice experiment. So reality isn't passive. It reacts to our observation. In classical physics, the world just is. Objects move whether you're watching or not. But the double slit experiment suggests something radical. Reality behaves differently when it's being observed. Particles only choose a path once someone or something is in a position to know about it. The simple act of setting up the ability to know changes the outcome. And the delayed choice experiment, does it change the past? The delayed choice experiment took things a little bit further. Scientists made the decision to observe after the particle should have already chosen a path. Shockingly, the particle still behaved as if it knew it would be observed. The future choice appeared to retroactively change the past behavior. It's as if the universe is flexible until a conscious decision locks it in.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Information seems more fundamental than matter. What determines the outcome? The particle itself, the measuring device, or the mere potential for information? Some physicists propose that information is more fundamental than physical stuff. The universe responds to what can be known, not just what is. And if information rules reality, who or what is gathering it? And are we co-creators of reality? If particles behave differently because they could be known, if choices in the present change outcomes in the past, then reality might not be a cold machine ticking forward. Reality could be participatory. Consciousness, observation, information, they may not be sideshows. They might be the engine itself, which leads to a bigger question. What role does your mind play in the universe? And so you may be wondering where I'm grabbing some of the clips that you've seen thus far in this video. Well, they come from a YouTube channel called @TheWhyFile. And this is probably one of my favorite YouTube channels over the past few years. AJ, who's the lead, has a great team, and he's built up a lot of different videos, and now he's got podcasts, and now he's working on other formats as well. In fact, it's the inspiration for this video. He also has a cool sidekick goldfish named Hecklefish that, if you grew up in the 80s like me, gives you a little bit of nostalgia about some of the older shows where sidekicks were a part. And he does a great job with the comic relief aspect. So AJ does a good job telling the story and going deep on a number of fringe topics, and then following up to check, is it true? So it's not like he's just saying, hey, believe this. His team of researchers make solid attempts to debunk these stories, and sometimes they can't. So please go check him out, as his videos will tell great stories about super interesting things, past, present, and future, with a tone of integrity and objectivity. I know if you watch one of his videos, you're going to get hooked on them all. So I'll leave a link to his channel, as well as the video that inspired this video. And on top of that, I'll put my very favorite video from that channel, which tells the story of a man who wakes up in the far future. Okay, back to this video. So the third main idea I want to talk about is how mind and matter may not be two different things. David Lynch has a theory of unified field that I want to talk about. And you might remember David Lynch from his time as a director of a certain show from the 1990s. Yes, that show, Twin Peaks.
That's damn fine coffee you got here in Twin Peaks. And damn good cherry pie.
Brilliant. I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
Talking about some of his theories outside of his job as a director in Hollywood. As physicists dig deeper, they find fewer and fewer separate pieces. At the deepest level, beneath particles, beneath forces, is what David Lynch calls the unified field.
They found 4 forces. On a deeper level, the 4 became 3. And on a deeper level, the 3 became And then, about 30 years ago, modern science, quantum physics, discovered the unified field. The unity of all the particles and all the forces of matter, of creation. Not only did they discover the unified field, but they found that everything that is a thing emerges from this field of no thing.
Everything, every object, every force, every interaction emerges from this single underlying reality. Science calls it the quantum field. Lynch calls it the unified field. Different names, but the same idea. So our mind's journey can totally mirror physics. Lynch points out that as you turn your awareness inward through meditation, through reflection, you don't just stay on the surface, you descend deeper and deeper, like a physicist traveling into smaller and smaller scales. At the deepest level, beyond thought and feeling, you reach pure consciousness, infinite love, infinite intelligence, infinite energy. The more inward you go, the closer you get to the same kind of unity that physics describes.
And that mantra that you're given, that Maharishi gives, the key that opens the door. The mantra turns the mind within, turns the awareness within, and you naturally dive. Why is it natural? Because each deeper level of mind and each deeper level of intellect has more happiness. And the deeper levels of mind and deeper levels of intellect correspond to deeper levels of matter.
So think of matter and mind as two sides of one field. The surface level mind involves distraction, and I have a video on that, chatter, temporary thoughts. Surface level matter is things like rocks, trees, energy we can see and measure. So at the lower level, deeper level mind involves unity, oneness, non-duality.
At the borderline of intellect, you transcend. Transcend is the key word. It means to go beyond. You're going beyond field of relativity, duality, experiencing oneness. Pure, unbounded, infinite consciousness.
On the physics side, the deeper level involves unified fields, probability waves, entanglement. Matter and mind aren't strangers. They're two ways of looking at the same underlying reality. And consciousness isn't passive, it's foundational. If pure consciousness is what you encounter at the bottom of mind, and if pure energy and probability are what you encounter at the bottom of matter, then maybe consciousness isn't a side effect of the brain. Maybe it's the source field, the generator, the thing everything emerges from. Mind and matter aren't parallel, they're the same. So back to the reason I wanted to make this video. A theory of everything that is talked about within physics probably needs a missing piece. Physics has unified forces, electricity, magnetism, gravity. It's trying to unify particles and energy at all scales, but something's missing. No equation yet explains observation, information, knowing itself. If consciousness is part of the fundamental structure according to some of the most important physicists ever, then the true theory of everything isn't just about what exists, it's about what experiences existence. So you're already part of it. This isn't just about particles and probabilities in a lab. Every act of awareness, every breath, every thought you have, whether we like it or not, is part of the system. And I have a video upcoming in this series about how thoughts shape your reality. Consciousness isn't something you use. Consciousness is what you are. And if that's true, then the ultimate answers won't just be found by smashing atoms. They'll be found by looking both outward and inward. And there's that word system I keep going back to in my videos. What is the system and how does it work? Well, that's for future videos in this YouTube channel to figure out. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching today. As there are often more than one right answer, go ahead and comment what you think. Is there anything I missed? Do you believe these things that these physicists have discovered? My 3 key takeaways are: observation shapes reality. Second, mind and matter are one. Third, the final frontier may actually be within. If you like what you saw today, please like and subscribe, as it keeps this kind of content coming your way. It's my goal, again, to make this content entertaining and funny, enlightening and educational, as well as a bit nostalgic. Stay tuned, as we're going to keep talking about topics ranging from consciousness to psychology to philosophy to physics, and the intersections in between that affect your thinking and being. And as I said, this video is the first video in a multi-part series, and the next video is going to be about the game of life. Not that game, but the real game. But until then, keep thinking and being, and do not go gentle into that good night.